This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and for the first time in a very long time, I am delighted to be joined by Matthew Macklin over Zoom. Matt, how are you doing? Firstly, it's been a while, like I say.
Yeah, long time no see, but yeah, no, I can't complain. Life's good, and looking forward to the new season now with the boxing.
Obviously, we've waited to do something whilst Sky working in the background as to their route into not into the sport, but kind of going back around on the back of a matchroom split and how they were going to stay involved. And now we've got that to talk about. Obviously, the deal with Top Rank, the deal with Boxer, amongst also the Wasserman deal as well. First and foremost, Matt, what's been your take on Sky's position now in boxing and how they want to move forwards within the sport?
I think there was a lot of uncertainty among the Sky team when the boxing team when it was so obvious for so long that Eddie was going to do his own deal. So everyone was thinking, well, what way does that leave boxing at Sky? And it was all pretty hush hush, cloak and dagger stuff really for a while, but. I think the announcement that the relaunch of the new era, I think, has kind of got everyone excited and motivated again, and I'm looking forward to it. It's a shame that matchroom, that was a great relationship that worked, but listen, things come to an end, and that's people go their separate ways. That's life. Do you know what I mean? I think that they'll do good over on DAZN. They'll put on big shows and good shows, and Sky will do great shows, and it's good for the boxers, it's great for the fighters, it's great for the fans. There's opportunity, there's competition, and the people who are going to benefit from that are the boxers and the fans. So, that's not a bad thing.
I mean, you just mentioned how much, the fans and especially the fighters will benefit now from Sky staying involved in the sport. How key would it be to have Sky alongside Matchroom with DAZN and Frank Warren with BT? How key would it be to have three of those main kind of networks all working to increase the volume of boxing that's shown across the UK?
No, look, the fact that there's more boxing on television, there's more opportunities for boxers. It's good for boxing. It's good for the boxers. It's good for the fans. What won't be good is if everyone just tries to keep everything in-house. That's not healthy. There has to be collaboration among promoters to make fights happen. If I'm Frank Warren, I might have a fighter who. And I make the offer to one of Eddie's fighters, and if it makes sense and Eddie can't make a better fight for him, then he should take the fight, and vice versa. Eddie might make an offer to a fighter that Frank has, even though Frank will want to promote the fight. If that's an offer that makes sense, then hopefully he lets that fight happen, and there can be promoters can work together, networks can work together. There can be cross promotions, and other fighters can box on another network that their promoter might not necessarily have a deal with, but he'll still get his commission or his fee, whatever's in their agreement, what's owed to him when that fight happens. So, it doesn't need. Some people are probably worried that it's going to be, they're on a different side of the street, and if you're not on that work and you're not with that promoter, then you're not going to get such and such a fight. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully people are more interested in growing the sport, making great fights, and hopefully there's more cross promotions and co-promotions, and that it doesn't become you're on a separate side of the street to me, so we can't fight. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I think that's the biggest fear, that having so many channels and so many promoters, that's the biggest fear. But as long as they work together, or are willing at least to work together, then I think more boxing, more channels, I just think it's a good thing. It's healthy for the sport. There's more opportunity for the fighters. Like I say, I think it can be. It doesn't have to be a negative.
Matt, we only saw the official announcement last week, obviously from Adam and from Sky with regards to the plans moving forward. So, have you been given any idea as to a long-term strategy which Sky want to try and implement to eventually start to entice more of the bigger names from the UK scene onto the Sky platform?
Well, look, it's good to look ahead. There's no point looking further than you can see, and they've made the fights that they can make available right now for the next, which takes us up into November. After that, things are going to change. Fighters are going to get beat. Fights that we thinking are going to get made aren't going to get made because someone gets beaten along the way or whatever. So it's an ever-changing landscape, and you've just got to be. You've got to have your, you've got to be with it. You've got to be sharp. You've got to be ready to make the fights. Look, Eddie's got a massive budget on DAZN. What DAZN don't have is what Sky does have. Is that platform, is that Sky Sports News, that crossover to the non-hardcore fan. That's what Eddie doesn't have. What Eddie does have is a massive budget. Now, it's, and also, even with that budget, and even with the dates, you can't keep everyone happy. It's never happened. Or, people, you're going to have a pecking order. You're going to have there's a list, and the people who aren't top of that pecking order might get pissed off and fed up, and they might not get happy, and that might be an opportunity then for Sky to pick up those fighters, or vice versa, whatever. I think the next 6 to 12 months is going to be very, very interesting time, because it is uncharted waters. We've never been here before. We don't know how it's going to play out. Television is changing. Look at Netflix. I know it's been going a long time, but now I don't even watch television anymore. I'm watching a film or a box set. I just go on Netflix. People are streaming now. We've seen the emergence of YouTubers. I didn't even know who YouTubers were until I watched KSI and Logan Paul, and that was only because I was working on it for Sky, so I had to read up on it. I didn't have a clue who those people were, but maybe that's my age. That's my age. So maybe the 15 and 16-year-olds that are coming through now, they're probably grown up watching YouTube, and streaming things on television. So it's changing times, isn't it? Yeah, and you've got to move with the times. And I think Eddie's always been very good with that. I think when he came on the scene in 2010, 11, he was very much using social media to make fights, and that had never been done before. So he was new, he was fresh, he was innovative at that time. Now he's evolved and gone with DAZN in America. Now he's brought that over here in the UK. Maybe that's the way things are going. Now, listen, it's a gamble, because he's gone from promoting on a massive exclusive platform where you cross over to the sports fan on Sky Sports. Now, I think Google was something like the 12th search engine. Sometimes just because you're the first out the box doesn't mean you're the one that lasts. The Premier League, when's that up for? I think that's staying on Sky for 3 years. So, can DAZN keep going, losing money year after year, show after show, for that amount of time? Or by the time they're kind of good to go, have they blown their brains out? You know what I mean? I don't know how deep your man's pockets are, but they're going to have. They must be pretty deep, because he's throwing a lot of money away. But listen, these are clever people, these, and it's business. Nothing's a given, nothing's certain, but it's educated gambling, and they're risk takers. But certainly the right people are coming together and they're going for it. So look, I work for Sky. I'll be commentating on the fights at Sky, and it's good to see that Sky seem like they're up for the challenge. They're game ball. They want to go for it. So they've listen, the top ranked deal, that's good. Okay, those fights are at 3 o'clock in the morning, but they'll be repeated throughout the day on the Sunday. And you've got some of the biggest names in boxing that are going to be on there, and Shakur Stevenson and Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez. And a lot of these fighters, I think, also that are boxing on Sky Sports, some of those fights will be shown. I think, I could be wrong, but I think we'll also have access to possibly fighting on ESPN Plus. So they're the two. If you're talking about UK and America, they are the biggest sports channels. That's where you are going to cross over to the casual fan. That's where you can become a star. Listen, DAZN, it's niche. It's really listen, I know about DAZN. I've known about DAZN for years because I'm immersed in boxing. But out of curiosity, I spoke to a couple of my mates that aren't really boxing fans. They didn't even know what DAZN is. So, you know, I don't know what way it's going to go, because this is new territory. This is uncharted waters, but it's exciting. It's exciting. It's good for boxing, I think.
It's an interesting point you've made, Matt, about Sky's platforms in terms of being able to promote shows across various different channels. From what you've seen of a DAZN show so far, do you think that Matchroom have missed that extra push from various different channels, during, say, a football match at half time or whatever, or during other sporting events, which could have highlighted there's a fight night coming up and what have you? Because certainly on boxing Twitter, it's been a bit of a talking point on the back of Warrington Lara 2 especially.
Yeah, of course. But look, he sold a big crowd there at Headingley. So, you know, locally, whatever, they've grafted hard, they've promoted the show. Certainly in Leeds, they got behind it. Listen, I don't know what viewing figures, I don't know how many people watched it on DAZN. That'd be interesting to know. But look, it is going to be harder to build. There's no point pretending otherwise. Of course, it's going to be a lot harder for Eddie to build a star. You know, let's say the Olympians now. Look, an Olympian's always got that head start because he's an Olympian. He's been on national television. You know what I mean? So their profile's already solid. But I don't know. Other fighters, it's going to be difficult to build them on DAZN. Difficult, but I wouldn't say impossible. You know, times we are sort of, 10, 11 years along from the Box Nation days. Back then, it was more difficult. Now, television's a lot more fragmented. There's social media is a much bigger thing now, Instagram, Twitter. Back then, I wasn't on it. I wasn't even on Twitter back then, 2010, 11, it was, I think 2012, I come on it and I was a boxer who, most are on it. So, I think more and more people all the time are getting on social media. More and more people realize that streaming is something you do now. Netflix, Amazon Prime, people are streaming things. So, times are changing. I think that is the way things are going. Is it there now? Maybe not. It's going to be, I think the next 6 to 12 months will tell a lot.
Matt, we've seen the likes of Hughie Fury, Savannah Marshall, Richard Riakporhe, Caroline Dubois all signed with Sky. And then you've got the Eubank Jr. fight being shown on Sky as well. Josh Taylor's going to have his fight shown on Sky in December. How key were picking up names like those guys and girls, being able to get them onto the Sky platform?
Oh, it was essential, wasn't it? That Sky had to work as hard as they could with Boxer, and I think they signed the best talent they could that was available. There wasn't probably loads left because Eddie had signed a lot, or a lot were already under contract. So it's going to be, like I say, when I say the 6 to 12 months, it's going to be interesting because Eddie's got a lot of money on DAZN. He's got X amount of dates, and he's got a lot of fighters that want to be kept happy. And listen, you can't keep everyone happy. So someone who might be down the list a little bit with Eddie might think, well, I'd rather be a bigger fish in a smaller pond than actually I want to be on Sky. And Sky then might show him more love, that fighter, you know what I mean? So it's look, he's got look Eddie's been the man over the last 10 years, let's say, and he's done this deal with DAZN and he's got a lot of money by all accounts to spend. So that, and look, he has a massive social media presence. Matchroom have, the fighters have. He's got some right good people with him, and they're going to go for it. And you couldn't back against him. But listen, Sky. Some people will say that Sky made Eddie, an exclusive deal with the sports platform in the UK that crossed over to every single football fan. Look, I think it was a bit of both. I think the platform was massive, no doubt. But listen, Eddie charismatic, great talker. Listen, he'd sell you a car with no wheels, wouldn't he? He's that persuasive. Look, it's going to be interesting. But whatever happens, I think it's healthy for boxing.
Matt, just touch on a couple of fights, potential fights. Obviously, Fury Hammer for later in October. Get your thoughts on that as one of the first Sky cards.
I mean, that's a good fight. You know, look, Hugh Fury's he's had a few losses and that, but listen, he's fought some top guys. You know, Hugh Fury hasn't got no padded record. His record is real. He's been in some hard fights, but he hasn't took any beating. You know, Hugh Fury hasn't took a beating by anyone. So he's not shot worn or he's not jaded. You know what I mean? He's had a couple of losses. He's had a few losses in very good company, but I think he's learned from it and improved and evolved and matured. So I think there's still plenty left in Hugh Fury. Look, I think the best is yet to come. I don't think there's some left. I think the best is yet to come with Hugh Fury. And you know, this fight against Hammer, not another tough fight, but I think it's one he'll come through.
Another fight which has been spoken about for a long time, back when she was with Matchroom, Savannah Marshall and Claressa Shields. That seems to be something which could well take place towards the latter part of this year. Obviously, I know Savannah's out on that Fury Hammer card, but how key could that fight be again? And what would you make of it if we were to eventually see them cross paths in the pro ranks?
Well, look, you got a few stars. You know, in women's boxing, who are your stars? Kate Taylor, Claressa Shields. I think in the UK, you know, you got Natasha Jonas, Savannah Marshall, Chantal Cameron, you know, and a few others. So look, these that's a huge fight in women's boxing. Look, I think Taylor and Serrano is one of the biggest, but maybe Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall, because of their history, that is possibly the biggest. So that would be a huge fight for Sky to get, and one would all really look forward to.
And Matt, just get your thoughts on a couple of the fights which have been and gone. As we hadn't had a chance to catch up, I'm sure he's somebody you followed closely throughout his career. Obviously, Manny Pacquiao falling short to your Dennis Ugas a few weeks back. Just want to get your take on his defeat then, and what may well be the last time we see a ring legend box.
Well, yeah, I mean, I commentated on the fight, and look, it didn't shock me because Ugas, you know, at his age, Manny Pacquiao's age, I think 42 or 43, and you know, out of the ring for nearly 2 years, it's difficult to come back. And you know, you look closer at Ugas's record. Yeah, he lost a few times, but you know, listen, a couple of those fights, did he lose them? Split decisions against undefeated guys in the backyard earlier on in his career. I didn't see the fights, so I don't know. But you're looking at him thinking, split decision, he's in the away corner. You know, even Sean Porter, that was a debatable decision. You know, he could have got that. So, you know, it didn't shock me really. You know, beforehand I thought could see this. I could see Ugas beating Pacquiao here. You know, and he did. Look, a legend of the sport, no doubt. One of the all-time greats. Certainly, him and Mayweather have been the best two fighters of our generation. I trained with him in 2010 in the wild card. He was at probably the top of his game at that point, certainly the peak of his fame and reputation and popularity. Yeah, listen, an icon, a legend, an all-time great for sure.
You mentioned you trained with him back in 2010. Matt, when after the fight with Ugas, I asked a couple of people afterwards in my post-fight interviews what were their standout memories of Manny Pacquiao. Not necessarily in the ring, it could have been a private moment just between them. Do you have anything which springs to mind?
Well, like I said, I was in LA training for fights myself when he was training for Clottey and Margarito. I mean, I remember the Margarito fight. I mean, Margarito, it was a bad beating, man. He got peppered, and he was a tough man and strong and big, and he just got hammered. You know, he got a bad beating, really. I don't know. How do you pick out one performance? There were just so many, weren't there? But his popularity was just on another level. It really was. I remember, like, the wild card was it was like a circus when he was there. It was chaos. You know what I mean? But he loved it. I think he loved that chaos, and he thrived on it.
Moving forwards, obviously, to this past weekend, we saw Warrington Lara 2. Unfortunately, we only saw it for 2 rounds because of that nasty head cut. The cut just above the eye of Mauricio Lara. Just wanted to get you a take there, Matt. What did you make of the fight up until that point?
Listen, it was heating up, wasn't it? it was it was heating up. I think Warrington was certainly. You could see he was a lot more up for it this time. He looked a bit. Look, I'd say he struggled last time, no crowd and all that. But this time certainly he was up for it. But he was getting caught as well. He got hit with a few, and we know Lara can punch. So listen, it was heating up. Who knows what way that fight would have gone? But it's a shame it happened the way it did. But you couldn't have let that fight go on. That was a horrendous cut. So the ref made the right decision, I thought. Definitely, like a no-brainer. He was absolutely bang on to call it the way he did. But, it's a shame from the fans' point of view because it was just starting to heat up nicely.
Matt, how long do you think it would roughly take for a cut like that to heal up?
Don't know, really. Before we start sparring, 6 to 8 weeks. Now, probably longer. That was a bad cut. I would say more, longer than that. Yeah. Look, a normal cut, you might think 6 to 8 weeks, but that's a bad one. That was a bad, deep, wide cut. So I don't know. But really, ideally, he'd have got stitched by a plastic surgeon. But who knows?
After the fight, Josh, he spoke. He still wants to have a trilogy bout, but again, just looking over social media, some people suggesting it would be better for him to go elsewhere and not necessarily look for that bout. If he was in Josh's shoes, do you think he needs to have a trilogy bout? He needs to put it to bed, or he should look elsewhere to try and get back onto the world scene?
Do you know what? I don't think he needs it. I think. Look, from his own pride point of view, he went back there and he was willing to do the rematch and did, and went into the rematch. So from his own sort of confidence and self-belief point of view, he went back there. He did it. He did fight him again, and it happened the way it happens, the head clash and the cut. So, he didn't shy away from it. It's not something that's going to be lingering there that he's ran away from. Do you know what I mean? So from that point of view, I think, and where he is and because of his age, I don't think he needs to go back there and do it again. I think he can, I think he's ticked the box. He's got rid of whatever demon or thing was there. He's got rid of in the sense that when he went back to face it, okay, he didn't get the win in the way that he would have liked to. But I don't think it's something that'll be niggling him now. He went back and tried to do the fight. He hasn't run away from it. He hasn't shied away from what went wrong. He faced it, and through no fault of his own, it ended the way it did. But I think he can move on from it now. I think, and because of his age and that, I don't think he needs to wait around again for Lara's cut to heal to do the third fight before he moves on. I think he should just crack on now. Maybe the Galahad rematch. Galahad's world champion now. It was a very close fight. Could have gone either way. Him and Warrington, you know what I mean? Leeds, Sheffield. I think that's the fight for him.
And Matt, just moving on to the heavyweight division, a couple to touch on before I leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening, because I know you're busy. AJ-Usyk is on the horizon. We're only a few weeks out from that now. Saw a photo of Anthony Joshua looking very lean during training. What approach do you expect him to take in this bout with Alexander?
I think Joshua's going to be too much for him. I just think he's going to be too big, too powerful. It's not like Joshua's cumbersome or slow. You know what I mean? He said he's looking light, so he's obviously not looking to be. He wants to be mobile, agile, fast. Joshua's no slow coach. You know what I mean? He's fast for heavyweight. So I think Usyk, unbelievable fighter. Listen, he had life and death with Chisora. Listen, Chisora's a good fighter, but I think Joshua will be too much for Usyk.
Some have said that they feel if AJ is successful against Usyk, it might be his best win on paper. Would you agree with that sentiment, or would you still think it'd be one of his other opponents?
I mean, it'll be up there, won't it? We don't know. We have to see the manner of what he beats him. Does he blast him out of there in 5 or 6 rounds and look like a killer, or does he? Is it close and is it controversial? I don't think it will be controversial. I think Joshua stops him. I think he stops him, and that will be one of his better wins. The Povetkin win at the time was a good win, wasn't it? The Ruiz rematch was a good win. Listen, the Klitschko one was a good win. The night he kind of came of age that night. So He's had a lot of good wins. He'll certainly be up there, you would think.
And then Matt, we're only about a month or so, just over a month now from Fury Wilder 3. When that does come around, what do you expect to see this time?
I think similar to the first time, really. I mean, you still got to be careful, Fury. You know, Wilder's got dynamite in his hands, so he can't take anything for granted or afford to get complacent. But I don't think he will. Listen, Fury's smart. Fury's clever. And he'll even though he knows he's better than Wilder, he'll know that he can't switch off. I think Fury's realised, look, Wilder can't back up. You back him up. You take away his leverages. I think Fury will do the same.
All right, Matt, we will leave that there. Like I said, I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening. It's been great to catch up with you for the first time in a while, like we said earlier. So enjoy the rest of your night, and thanks for speaking to Boxing Social.
You're welcome. Cheers, Andy.